Today, we look at the amazing 8 musicians that gave up their lives and decided to keep playing while the HMS Titanic went down. Often, when we find out about heroic acts such as these, we ask questions such as why was there no fear? Or did they decided that no matter what, their fates were already sealed? Most of us have never been caught up in a situation where we only have a couple of hours to decide how we would react to life or death. We would have loved to have known if the band leader convinced everyone that that was the right thing to do. Or, did they all decided themselves that this was the right thing to do? So, with those thoughts in mind, how did these 8 musicians come together and decided that they would keep playing knowing that they would not make it out alive? Hello, and welcome to Odd, Crazy, and Amazing, where we explore and learn of the many wonderful things most people have yet to know. Firstly, I do want to point out that I am using a speech software and it does sound robotic, but I hope you enjoy the content and information. So, if this sounds like your kind of thing, give me a couple minutes of your time and help me with the algorithm. That will help me out tremendously. The Titanic was one of the biggest ships in the world at the time in 1912. It boasted advanced safety features that had watertight compartments and remotely activated watertight doors. This contributed to its reputation as being unsinkable. However, that reputation did not last long, and at 11:40 p.m. on April 14, 1912, the Titanic collided with an iceberg, and by 2:20 a.m. it was fully submerged. Here, we will look into the 8 band members that was on the HMS Titanic and get to know how they all came together and gave up their lives for the sake of others. Before that though, let's start with Harold Bright and Carlos Hurd. They both gave and obtained critical pieces of information that helped us identify these 8 musicians as heroes today. Harold Bright was one of the Titanic's Marconi operator who had survived and was one of the last few members to get off the ship right before it sank. He was their wireless radio operator, and he described how the band continued playing and did not even make an attempt to leave as the ship was pulling them down. He stated, "The ship was gradually turning on her nose just like a duck does that goes down for a dive. I had only one thing on my mind, to get away from the suction." The band was still playing. I guess all of the band went down. They were playing Autumn then. This minor detail that they were playing Autumn was later noted by the New York Times when they obtained a book of music that was said to be a duplicate of the one the musicians would have had. So, they did concluded that Autumn was what was played rather than Nearer, My God, to Thee. However, Carlos Hurd was a journalist who happened to be on the boat that was rescuing the surviving members of the HMS Titanic. He just happened to be on the HMS Carpathia, and it was diverted when news broke that the HMS Titanic struck an iceberg. While there, he was able to get first-hand accounts from the survivors that also matched up with Harold Bright's story that the band kept playing on until their very last breaths. The only difference here is that Hurd's story was one of the first stories published, and it had mentioned the band was playing Nearer, My God, to Thee. Thus, this has been the most widely accepted version of events that described what the musicians was playing as they went down with the HMS Titanic. However you look at it, and no matter what they were playing, we know for certain that these 8 musicians were some of the bravest men in history. So, let's start off with Wallace Hartley. Born on June 2, 1878, his life mainly revolved around music and choir as his father was a choirmaster where they attended worship services. He first learned to play the violin from a fellow congregation member there that taught him and gave him lessons. Then, in 1903, he left his family and friends and joined the municipal orchestra in Bridlington, where he stayed for 6 years and honed his talent. After that, he joined the Cunard Lines, who specialized in having musicians serve on cruise liners at the time. While on the RMS Mauritania, the musicians employed by Cunard Lines agency got transferred over to another agency known as CW&FN Black. By this time, all the musicians were employed by CW&FN Black, and in 1912, they were all assigned to play on the HMS Titanic. Unsure and reluctant to go because Wallace did not want to leave his fiancée Maria, he did eventually board the HMS Titanic in hopes of a better tomorrow for himself and his family. Next, not a lot is really known about the remaining members besides their selflessness, but here are a few key points to know. We have Theodore Briley, born on October 25, 1887, and Roger Bricoux, born on June 1, 1891. These two met each other on the RMS Carpathia prior to joining CW&FN Black, where they were eventually enlisted on the HMS Titanic. Briley joined the Royal Lancashire Fusiliers Regiment for about 5 years and left shortly after that. He was not able to serve his full term and decided to opt out. On the other hand, Roger Bricou had great musical talent and actually won first prize at the Conservatory of Bologna in Italy. Ironically though, the French army at the time did not believe Bricou had perished when the HMS Titanic went down and listed him as a deserter. It was only after a memorial plaque was made of Bricou by the French Association in 2000 that they declared him the brave hero that he was. Our next two musicians are John Hume, who played the violin, and John Clark, who was their bass player. John Hume's story does have a very challenging ending for his fiancée Mary Costin and his soon-to-have daughter Joanne, which she later changed to Jackie. He was born on August 9, 1890 in Dumfries, Scotland, and along with Hartley and Clark, were the only three members of the band that had their bodies found and buried. All the other band members unfortunately never had their bodies identified or found. I won't go into too much detail about John Hume, but if you are interested, I've left a link below for you to check out and read into to find out more about his fiancée and daughter's lives after his death. Then there was John Frederick Clark, born on July 28, 1883, and came from a very musical family. He was well known at the time in musical circles and was a former member of the Argyle Theatre. A lot of his friends and time was spent in Birkenhead, where he played and visited the Argyle Theatre often. His body was identified and buried in Nova Scotia, Canada. However, fate would also bring him onto the HMS Titanic, along with the other 7 band members. The outcast of the group was a young man born on March 18, 1889, Georges Crins. He grew up always wanting to join the army rather than in a musical family like everyone else. He did not have a taste for music or the violin yet, but his family eventually convinced him to take a different career path. So, being born in Belgium, he studied at the Royal Conservatory of Music for 6 years, and while there, he won first prize for the violin, one of the highest honors you can get. With that talent, he became the bandmaster of the trio string orchestra and soon caught the attention of who else but C.W. and F.N. Black. Our last two very interesting musicians are John Wesley Woodward and Percy Cornelius Taylor. Woodward was born in England on September 11, 1879, and was very talented just like everyone else here. He excelled at playing the cello, and while attending the Royal Academy of Music, he was often recruited to be part of an ensemble, to teach others music, or simply just to play by himself. He was that talented and sought after. However, Woodward eventually wanted to stop performing on cruise ships because he wanted to start a family with his fiancée and be closer to home. This would have gave him a chance to enjoy his other hobbies, such as photography and engineering. Sadly, on his last and final trip on the HMS Titanic, he would give up his life to keep others calm in the wake of the tragedy. Last, but not least, we have Percy Cornelius Taylor. He, on the other hand, could not contain his excitement and could not wait to board the HMS Titanic. Born on March 20, 1872, and with 5 siblings, they had a big family. He married later in life when he met a widow named Clara Talbot, who was introduced to him by his younger brother and his wife. She was the sister of his younger brother's wife. However, this was not all bells and whistles, and it is said that Percy signed up for the HMS Titanic to escape his unhappy marriage. So, now that you know a little bit more about these musicians, what would you have done? If you were in their shoes at that time and at that place in existence, would you have done the same? The early 1900s was a time much more different to how we have it now, so I'm curious to hear what you guys think. I believe the 1900s was a much simpler time where you hear stories of men putting their coats down over puddles for the ladies. Genuinely wanting to and open and hold the door for their significant other. All these qualities, along with others, brings out the bravery and honor for a man to want to give up their life for others. I'm not saying all this does not exist anymore in today's standard, there still is bravery and honor in men's today. So please let me know in the comments how you guys would have reacted if you were in the same situation. Lastly, you can find a memorial dedicated to these musicians in Southampton of the United Kingdom. The original memorial was actually damaged in World War II, and a new exact replica was put in its place in 1990. It features a musical inscription, all of the 8 musicians' names, and an intricate carving of a grieving woman. If you are ever in that area, please take a moment to stop by and take a look and honor these 8 amazing musicians. I hope you have enjoyed this little event in history that I myself did not know about until I started looking into it. This is one of the many amazing things most people have yet to know. So if you have stayed till the end and found this enjoyable, please help me with the algorithm. Until then, I hope to see you with a friend in the next video.